First of all, let me say, I have not found in this session a single legislator who, if they had another dollar, they wouldn't want to give it to the university. We're really being well supported. We're being well thought of. People are asking tough questions, and they should. And we're digging deep to try to get the right answers, and if the answer is the wrong answer, then we're trying to change it to the right answer. So what we're doing is very, very important, but we're doing it under duress because the state is going to have to bring in, and I'm talking about an operating budget now, that's considerably less than what certainly the university has been used to in the past. And I've been down there before the House and the Senate on more than one occasion now so far this session. And unlike previous sessions, where you go down and talk about, and we do incremental budgeting in Alaska. So you basically have a baseline, which is the stuff that comes back to you naturally every year. And then normally you would go down and say, you know, I want to add an increment to do this and another increment to do this. And then you end up arm wrestling over the increments of the size of the increments. And that's typically the way the dialogue goes. Well, there are no increments this year. The baseline started being reduced last year, an honest reduction from the year before, where we took $17 million off of the baseline in 14 to do the year that we're in right now. The year of execution is the year 15, and we're over halfway through, and we're doing fine, but it's a stretch. I mean, you look in all the corners of the organization and you try to find offsetting dollars. Plus you have inflationary increases in your normal expenses. You have contractual obligations that go up by a couple of percent. And so the total that we were looking at trying to overcome, in other words, the amount of money we needed to stay even, but that we didn't have in 15, was about $28 million across the system. This year, in 16, the number that we're dealing with at the present time, and of course, you know how that can change right up to the last hour of the last day. The number we're dealing with this year is 43 million coming out just in the year 16. And so our estimation is we're going to look at about a 3-year period. And over that 3-year period, given the numbers and the words that we've heard from the legislature, we're looking at 16 being 43 million down, at least, and then 17 being at least 43 million again, and 18 being at least 43 million again. So over a 4-year period, you're talking about 150 million coming out of the University of Alaska budget, overall budget. That's 150 million, in other words, that we did not have the wherewithal to come up with those dollars to break even. So we had to go back into our baseline and offset those dollars either through savings or through reductions, or maybe earning some revenue. But it's money that we didn't have that we had to find. And so you had to cut expenses primarily to do that. And you had this long-term impact. What are we going to look like at the end of that total 4 years? What's the baseline going to shrink to? Because that will tell us what we're going to be able to fund at the end of that period of time. And then how are we going to do each one of those separate 4 years on the way to that end game? So the briefing to the legislature then was not what do we cut, but what do we keep? There's a core that comprises what the state of Alaska expects from its university system. And the offerings in that core that go to students are made up primarily of a balanced higher education, but one that's focused first and foremost on the needs of the state of Alaska and the needs of students who want to get jobs in the state of Alaska. That doesn't mean they're not prepared to go outside, but we are Alaska's university. We also have the 13 community campuses. We are the workforce producer of the largest chunk of the workforce in the state of Alaska. So figuring out what our core is going to be, and then hunkering down and restructuring ourselves around that core, and getting the legislature to buy into the idea that that core has to survive. If we disassemble or fracture that core, it will take a decade or more, as we know and we saw back in the late 80s and the years in the desert in the early 90s when we did that, and we let key faculty go, and we weren't really concerned about keeping people in key positions or keeping key programs. It has literally taken us up to now to recover from that. And we don't want to go through that again. So the idea that we get the buy-in from the faculty to hold to a core, And then let the chancellors, let the Board of Regents, let us all determine what that core needs to look like. And then fight to preserve that. Fight to continue excellence, fight to continue recruiting good faculty, good students, working with the high schools to get a better student in the door, something that is really beginning to pay off. That's the strategy to go forward with. If I had to go take on a problem like this, I couldn't have a better team. The three chancellors are absolutely superb. They don't whine, they don't argue, they sit down, they make tough calls, they agree with each other, and we've been able to look at things as a group. We call ourselves the summit team because we make decisions for the entire system as opposed to just for one university that all three agree to, and all three of the provosts on the academic side, all three of them agree to. And so we have this unanimous intent to take action across the entire university system that will affect everybody. It wasn't too many years ago that would have been absolutely unheard of and unthought of. It would have been impossible to orchestrate something like that. The governor, to his credit and to the lieutenant governor's credit, they are a team. The president's position in the University of Alaska has been placed on the governor's cabinet. I've been in the first cabinet meeting, and the second cabinet meeting will be a 2-day-long meeting coming up at the end of next week. He has stated that he wants to use the University of Alaska's intellectual capacity more to advise the state of Alaska rather than going outside and hiring consultants from everywhere. We have people who are doing a wonderful job nationally and internationally in terms of the work that they're doing, and I think that's recognized by the new governor, and he's making good on that promise. I'm orchestrating a meeting with him on the 5th of March in terms of bringing in a major corporate contributor to the state of Alaska who wants to come in here and sit down in Alaska for the next 50 years and contribute, including manufacturing. By itself, this particular initiative may not have gained traction because as individuals look at bits and pieces of it, they say, well, we can't afford it, we're broke, how can we do this, how can we do that? But if you stand back and take a look at the strategic picture of what this company wants to do in Alaska and convey that to the governor said, I need to see this because this is very promising. Those kinds of reactions to the recommendations on the part of the university to just even take a look at something, but doing it at his level, normally that would have been pawned off to a department. So this is a good thing for the university is what I'm trying to say. I'm not into politics, but I'm into what's good for the university. And right now I think this is a bright spot and one that will help us get through a tough time. You know, the toughest thing in the world for a corporation to do is to have the guts and the courage and the strength to invest at a time when the finances are the toughest. If you can invest in really tough times, when those times come out and you've made that investment and that investment starts to take when everything starts going back to normal or growing, that investment then is there working for you from day one. And we're trying to argue that that's the case with some of our academic programs. We can't afford to disassemble them and then have to go out and try to find a faculty that can come back in and be as qualified and as good as the one we've got now. I'm going to leave you with just a couple of thoughts here. First of all, veterans. All three of our universities are what's known as military-friendly universities. It's a designation given by the DoD. And all three of our universities have that designation and have had it for several years. So that's important. In terms of what we do for veterans, as you know, virtually all the military in the state of Alaska get, and their spouses and their dependents get in-state tuition when they want to go to school through the university system. And that's one of the things that's contributed to this military friendliness. So what does that mean in numbers? If I told you that there were 5,000 active or veterans enrolled at UAA right now, I might be on the low side. Because nobody has to tell us they're a veteran, our best estimate is that we're somewhere between maybe 4,500, 6,500 veterans just at UAA. So we're deeply invested in our veterans, in their families, and in their education for the state of Alaska. I'll leave you with a couple of comments in no particular order from a list that I keep started not too long ago that I turn over on a regular basis. It's called UA First Evers and Best Evers. These are first time we've ever seen this before, or this is the best we've ever seen in the history of the university. The fact is, we really need to make sure that you all and everybody else out there realizes that the investment that is being made in the university is paying off. And so when you hear for the 74,000th time that credits don't transfer, that was true several years ago. But believe me, you need to hear the story today and not the old stories, because times are changing, just like higher education is changing at a speed that's very hard to keep up with. But just let me give you a few. This one just came in not too long ago. UAA rated 68th best university in the West by U.S. News and World Report. That's out of about 1,400 universities. Bachelor's degree completion rate, full-time students, the government measures that over a 6-year period. It used to be 4 when I was going through, but now it's 6. It's at an all-time high of 31% across the UA system and has increased 6% in the last 3 or 4 years alone. UAF is leading with a baccalaureate graduation rate of 42.5%, which is above the national average for similar institutions. Now, they have an SAT, ACT requirement to go into a 4-year baccalaureate course. We are about to get the board to approve that for the system-wide. But for people who don't have those, it's not that we're going to turn them away at the door. What we're going to do is place them at a level that we can start them out at so they can be successful. If you go in way over your head after the first semester, you're gone. And if you happen to be in the top 10% out in a rural area and you got a scholarship and you came in all fired up because you were gonna be the ace of the base and you were over your head in your first math course and you just lost heart and you dropped out, you took the scholarship with you, it went to waste, those days have got to be over. Open enrollment really means open success, and that's ours to figure out how to do that. UAS awarded record number of degrees and certificates, up 15% in 1 year. UAS implemented student success intervention that led to a 20% reduction in the number of students on academic probation. That happened over just a 2-year period. UAF research, we are the nation's Arctic university. We are #1 in the world in terms of articles written about the Arctic from UAF. #1 in the world from any other country. And then citations of those articles by all kinds of other researchers worldwide who cite the UAF article in something they're doing. We're #1 in the world in citations too. UAA is just beginning research. We're at about a 10-to-1 ratio between UAF and UAA, but I guarantee you the desire at UAA is to change that ratio and change it fast. Research brings money into the state of Alaska, and it's good for the economy as well. We've got a long way to go, but we're certainly making progress. And I think, again, that's thanks to a lot of support that we get. Ask the hard questions, point out the things that we're doing wrong, keep the dialogue going, send your kids to UA, and I guarantee you, you won't be sorry. We're still about the 4th cheapest deal in the entire country, and I want to see more of these national accolades going to the 3 universities. In our workforce development program, I can tell you right now, it's the tops. And if you just look at a number of different places in the state, for example, in 2-year nurses, our 2-year nurses are in high demand. There are other places where other sources of 2-year nurses, they won't even look at them. They will only look at ours. And that's in millwrights. Where do you find millwrights? And on and on and on. We're it. We're Alaska's university. We're doing good. And we're going to come out of this budget problem intact, and we're going to come out the better for it.